Split. So the first one is from Christopher Dale Goodwin, and if we've read that name before, I don't remember. It's not one of our overused, you know, go-to names. So welcome, Christopher Dale Goodwin. Writes, I talked to a leftist coworker who said he would be willing to fight in the streets if Roe v. Wade was overturned. What line would have to be crossed to trigger conservatives, conservatarians, libertarians to take up arms and fight in the streets? I feel it would have to be drastic to me, but I've never really thought about a specific trigger that would cause me to use violence. A.R. Texkin. Hey, Texkin, how are you, man? One of our members of our Aurora Republic. Who knew? Well, I think there are two third rails in American politics, one on one goal line and one on the other. Roe v. Wade is the liberal goal line. This is the place that they will fight to the death on. And for the others of us, it's the Second Amendment. So if there was a political, if we had the political clout to overturn Roe v. Wade legally, I don't believe it could be done. People wouldn't adhere to it. I don't believe them about fighting in the streets. That's kind of our thing. But without question, he wouldn't comply with that law, and many, many, many doctors would not comply with that law either. So it would be like criminalizing alcohol. So it's Roe v. Wade on the left, and on the right, it's the Second Amendment. Not terribly proud of this, but we keep outsmarting the totalitarians in Sacramento, as I mentioned several times, with the bullet button and then this new modification. But the fact is, we should have just rioted and shot them all. We should have just gone up there with muskets, and the second they tried to start doing this to us, we should have just, blown a couple of them out of cannons to encourage the other ones. And then we'd be living free here, but we're not. With that said, restrictions on sales are one thing. I find them unconstitutional and repulsive, but nevertheless, it's a restriction on a sale. I think the other rail would be if there was ever an attempt to actually go and take guns away from people, to take away guns that they owned, come and get them kind of thing. I think that would be. I cannot imagine the societal consequences of either one of those two events. But more and more every day, I want this, divorce. I really do. I just, I try to be fair with myself, and I look at. Who was it? This story of it was Heather McDonald. No, yes, Heather McDonald's book, which I just finished, called "The Burden of Bad Ideas," and this was written 25 years ago. And I'm looking at what the left did to schools and what they said about Giuliani and that shooting, and again and again and again and again and again. I find them not only not telling the truth, but telling whatever has to be said in order to gain power. And there really does seem to be get your glasses ready, an arcade difference between us and them, where we would rather lose by the rules than win by cheating, and they just don't feel that way. We did. I just posted. It was a little bit late. I posted the Supreme Court right angle just a couple hours ago, where Scott is talking about some left wingers now that we've got Scalia replaced with Gorsuch. Moderate Kennedy's going out, and Kavanaugh comes in. If he's a solid conservative, then we've got the balance in the court. And if, as I say on the show, if the titanium hull of Ruth Bader Ginsburg doesn't last long enough, then we will have not only a two-person majority, but we will also have what the hell was I going to say? We will have replaced a liberal champion with a conservative. So Scalia dies, and you replace him with a conservative. That's no net gain at all. That's just replacement. Having a moderate go and replace with a conservative is a huge gain, which looks like that's going to happen. They can't stall this for 2 years. They can stall it to the election. And then if a liberal justice goes, then they're going to lose their mind. Are already showing signs of losing their mind. There was it became clear to me immediately when he nominated Kavanaugh. I forget, once again, the magic answer will appear. there is a woman candidate for Supreme Court, superbly qualified woman, unlike Sotomayor and what's her name, the girl who gets coffee for the rest of the guys. These brain freezes are terrible. Because I actually know this stuff. But I thought, well, why didn't they go with a woman? Then I realized, okay, they're holding on her, that conservative woman justice. They're saving her for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Amy Barnett, is that right? Thank you. They're saving her. Kagan, thank you, yes. They're saving her. And they're saving her because even everybody has to play identity politics. As I said in the right angle, I said, Trump has made an historic first with this appointment. It's the first time in the history of the Supreme Court that a justice has been appointed who sounds like he's somebody who should be holding a Super Bowl MVP ring. Chet Kavanaugh sounds like a football player. The entire thing is really terrible. I would Darth Vader. It's funny, Dave Big Boot. And what is Rush Collar Ruth? Buzzy Ginsburg. Anyway, the idea that this is this important is repulsive. We should not be having this kind of conversation. It's a tacit admission that we are not governed by 435 representatives and 100 senators. We're governed by 9 people in dark robes, and it's kind of the Star Chamber. And when you get down to a court that's 9 members, 4 conservatives or 4 liberals, and you have 1 swing vote consistently, it's not quite that clear, but let's just say it is for the sake of the argument. 4 conservatives, 4 liberals, and 1 person in the middle, that 1 person rules America. They determine American policy. They determine whether abortion will be legal. They'll determine whether gay marriage should be legal or not. That 1 person will rule the country's culture, and it was never, ever, ever intended to be that way. Now, you can hear the left, which to me is hilarious because the left always understood that the Supreme Court is the way for them to get what they want without having to win elections. If you can get a president in there and pack the court, then anything that conservatives do that you don't like, you just have the court overturn it. Doesn't matter. It's like an endless stack of get out of jail free cards. So now you hear the left saying, there should be term limits on the Supreme Court. Oh, really? Yeah, and maybe the Supreme Court really shouldn't be this important. No kidding. So once again, they're trying to change the rules after the fact to keep themselves in power. And my response to that is to anybody from the left who's saying that the court shouldn't be as important as it is, I will say, I'll make you a deal. How about if we abolish the Supreme Court right now for all time? We just get rid of it. We don't need it. Let's just get rid of it. You want to shake on that? I bet they don't. The beautiful irony of this will be that we should be able to ram. Well, we've already got Gorsuch. We'll have 2. I suspect we'll have 3, and we might have 4 or even more Supreme Court justices, and we'll have them when we wouldn't have had them before, because Harry Reid needed Dirty Harry needed a vote on something that escapes my memory, and broke. Used the Reid option, formerly called the nuclear option, where he basically broke a gentleman's agreement that had been in place for 100 years. And said, well, I'm gonna just go to majority vote and break this precedent. And he got his vote. And Mitch McConnell said the only thing I think I've ever heard Mitch McConnell say that I thought was relevant or interesting. Went up to him right after the vote and said, "You're going to regret this, and you're going to regret it sooner than you think." So I love the fact that we can pack the Supreme Court with conservatives thanks to the liberal Senate Majority Leader using the Harry Reid option. All right, so last one here.